Hello and welcome, Joshua, Sal. We thought we'd do something slightly different today. Um, I am going to step aside and allow Charlie to share information. I mean, many of you who watch this will have heard Charlie, 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 and what could you? Charlie is a non-entity because Charlie is part of the soul dimension, and as such, Charlie is part of God. And you cannot separate Charlie from anything else, but we separate it for ease of conversation because of our limited way of being in the world. And I rely on Charlie for everything. So I thought it'd be nice to actually do a session in which you get to meet Charlie indirectly via me. And Joshua will be asking questions of whatever interests him. And perhaps, I don't know if anyone manages, this is very impromptu. So there may or may not be other people out there who are ready to ask any questions. Because this is not a live event.
If I'm looking at my phone, it's not because I'm distracted. I'm looking to see if anyone sent any messages. And at the moment, no. So back to me, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're it.
So let's kick off with this. You know, I know some of this, but I think it's good to clarify this for some people. So when you say, Charlie is in the soul dimension, you've got a shard of Charlie within you?
Okay. Indirectly, I have.
Indirectly.
We all have a soul, but the soul is fragmented across time. And in my case, I've named my soul fragment as Eric. And Eric is a fragment of Charlie. Yeah. And Eric is from the soul dimension connected to the earth. Charlie, from the soul dimension, is connected to another planet in this galaxy. In terms of from the soul dimension, there's a pinpoint of focus in the third dimension to which Charlie goes. But on the other hand, Eric is like a son of Charlie, just to put into some sort of perspective. So that's...
Okay. So what's the most important thing that we need to know right now?
To open up our hearts. It's not as to what we need to know, it's what we need to do. Knowledge is ephemeral. Knowledge is quite meaningless. What matters is experience. And so what we need is to experience the love in our hearts.
And what have we come here to experience in this time?
Just to drive the vehicle. The vehicle is the human being. We, as human beings, we think we're it. We think we're special. It's all think. It's to do with the soul, like Eric. The soul fragment is here to experience life in all its complexity the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And we're not all at the same level of experience, i.e., some soul fragments have been here many more times than others, and so they have better control over the vehicle. And a vehicle which functions the way it's meant to is one that is connected to all its emotions, and it has an open heart, connects with feelings, and enjoys life to the full in its basic simplicity of having relationships, having children, enjoying the rest of nature, the animals, the creatures, basically being part of the Garden of Eden, for lack of a better word, enjoying life for what it is. But we've fallen far from the perch, and we've lost our way. And so we've gone into all these great cities, and we have divorced ourselves from nature, and there's a lot more going on there, but essentially we've lost ourselves to ourselves, and the soul fragments within us are traumatized. And the soul fragments can only connect with a human being via our hearts. And most of us are too damaged to go into our hearts because we've been let down, we have not been given the love. Children need to be loved. We have not been given the love that we need to grow up. It's like a plant. A plant needs to be watered, it needs to be fed. If it doesn't, it grows up stunted. Once it's grown up stunted, it's stunted. You can't change that. And that is the unfortunate truth for most of humanity, that we have grown up stunted. And it's really hard to get back into our hearts. And our soul fragments are not capable of truly driving the vehicle, i.e., the vehicle of being a human being, the vehicle of experiencing.
So where did it all go wrong?
Since the last cataclysm. Prior to the last cataclysm, there's always been young souls coming into being, because the process is continuous. But these younger souls coming into beings, when you're a young soul, you're very fearful and self-obsessed and sociopathic. It's inevitable because it's only me exists, because my fear is too great. And there were always older souls who contained the younger souls and helped them to learn, to be part of the group, to be part of life, to enjoy life. And they didn't necessarily manage it in one lifetime, but nevertheless, the process was quick. It didn't take many lifetimes to learn to deal with the fear that is part of our instinctive nature. All on this earth, for sure, everything is eat or being eaten. So everything on this earth needs mechanisms for self-protection and awareness so as not to be eaten. And within biological entities, we call that fear. It's an instinctive fear. It's hardwired into our systems. And we have that. And part of the soul process of being in a human body is to move away from that fear, to put the fear into perspective, to acknowledge the fear. It's important to have fear. You don't want to cross the road if a bus is coming. So being fearful is prudent. But it's having that fear in perspective and not being ruled by the fear. And it takes time to learn that. It takes more than one lifetime. And since the last cataclysm, a lot of the old souls departed. They moved on to other planets. They did not physically depart, but the soul was ready to come back into a different body in a different planet. This planet is a training ground of sorts. And after the last cataclysm, we were left with a larger proportion of younger souls coming into the world. They gradually took over to the point in which they gained the upper hand, and their self-destructive nature began to affect their children, and then the children's children ad infinitum. So gradually we descended into what they call the Dark Ages. But the Dark Ages actually began way before the Dark Ages. They began around 10,000 years ago. After the last cataclysm, there were still some developed souls, but the proportion gradually diminished, and the younger souls took over. And then we had cruelty, barbarism, slavery, human sacrifice, which has spiraled downwards, and we lost our way as human beings. And the souls that would then come into this world, if they were more advanced, in the sense they've been around a few more times, they were nevertheless trapped in the mire which had been created by these lower souls, which now control the groups. And through their brutality and barbarism, they kept everyone subdued and damaged. So it didn't matter if you were a more advanced soul. You came into this world, you did not get the sunlight, you did not get the watering, you did not get the nutrients, and so you grew stunted and distorted, and you rarely got around to have the experience and tools within the lifetime to free yourself of that fear.
So what are we capable of as humans if we didn't have that fear?
We will always have that fear. Fear is natural to the organism. What's required is for us not to be at the mercy of the fear. We don't want to be bonded to the fear. We don't want to be ruled by the fear. The fear is part of being servant to the organism, not the ruler of the organism. At the present time, most of humanity is enthralled to their fear. And that is unfortunate, because almost 2/3 of humanity is older souls who do have the potential to move beyond the fear. The problem is that they're indoctrinated and they're damaged. And it is a harder task to free oneself from the bondage of fear. It's not impossible. And the time is coming where that 2/3 of humanity will find their way to the heart once more, because there are two states of being: fear or love. And to move beyond fear, we have to move into love. which means we have to move into our hearts.
How can someone practically do that?
Up till now, the only way forward is via dealing with one's emotional damage, suppressed damage. We, as part of our growing up in this life, we are damaged psychologically, emotionally. We are indoctrinated. We're given a whole lot of belief systems as to the nature of reality by which to move through life. And to the extent that we do that, we're stuck. And the way forward is literally to go into ourselves and connect with the emotional damage within us and experience the emotional intensity which has been suppressed for so long. But it is not so clear-cut. Some of us are more damaged than others, and the journey is longer than others. This will change in the near future. But for now, that is the only way forward, literally to experience our emotions, to ask ourselves, what am I experiencing right now? What am I not experiencing, more to the point? Unfortunately, our world is designed to distract us from connecting with our emotions in a healthy way. Most people are encouraged to experience the emotions in a destructive way. We need to own up to our emotions, and we need to experience the pain of the emotion. And that takes time. It cannot be rushed. As of this moment, things will change in the near future, but as of this moment, it cannot be rushed.
Previously, you've mentioned, that we don't have free will. So when and how and who decided what this path that I am on, for example, how that's going to manifest and what that's going to be? And is that unique for me, or is it a similar thing for everybody else?
Everybody's got a path. No, actually, that's not true. No, that's not true. Younger souls do not have a path. It is those souls who have been around quite a few times and they've actually learned in previous lifetimes a lot about their bodies, how to manage the body. Their paths are choreographed, and because we're now nearly 8 billion people on this earth, the choreography now has taken practically almost 8,500 years. When there was only a few million people, it was very easy to choreograph their movements and interactions. But now that there are so many of us, the potential for mishap, for interactions not occurring at a given moment in time have increased. And so human lives, the more advanced human lives, have been choreographed like today, 8,500 years ago. Our lifetimes were choreographed. And even then, they have not been choreographed with exactitude. The major points of who we are meant to meet and when are choreographed. The major events in our lives are choreographed. But the little day-to-day events are not choreographed. It's not possible. There's just too many bits of information to bring together. So who we are born to has been choreographed, not just in this lifetime, but for generations. So for you and I to be here today, we're talking about four generations into the past have come together, and we are the product of that, of the people we were meant to meet, so that our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents would be born. So there is a genetic element involved in this. The choreography is important because the next 20 odd years is the culmination of freedom for so many more advanced souls who have been born and lost themselves in the mire of the world. Our present world is a very damaging world to the soul, to the heart, to the connection, the soul connection. And we cannot move on from this planet to other planets to continue our soul evolution. We cannot move on until we can die consciously. And the challenge for many of us in this lifetime is not just simply to die consciously, but to clear the trauma from past incarnations. And the only other way forward is going to be for those souls who have advanced enough to be in charge of their bodies and their fears, to clear the emotional decks of their psyche so that they can raise the level of soul integration high enough that they can physically, bodily depart from this planet, which will happen. And 2/3 of the world population are going to depart this planet in 20 odd years. But there's a fly in the ointment. Just look at my face. There's a fly in the ointment. The fly is that they have to work towards releasing their fears and their anxieties and connect with their hearts so that they can increase the level of integration with their soul fragments, to at least 45%. That's a minimum. And it will be done, they will do it, because it's been pre-planned. It's going to happen. So all of this has been to get us off planet, to move on to other planets. Some, to do most, will do this physically, some because we will die consciously, one or the other. And the ones who will be left behind will be the 1/3 of humanity whose soul development is still very basic. And so, to that extent, this planet, certainly for another cataclysm, will be doomed to continue repeating into barbarism. But after that, it will start to change again.
So many angles I wanted to go off on it.
Choose one. It doesn't matter. It'll be the right question.
So, what experience do souls have on other planets that's different to here?
Well, first of all, perhaps I should say that soul is in everything. Yeah, it's not just human beings, the trees, the plants, the fish, the birds, the amoebas, everything has got soul in it at different gradations of experience. And there is soul in all the other planets, but not all other planets have got human beings. There is, in this quadrant of this galaxy, there is about 1,500 planets which contain human life forms. And most of them, they are the true humans, which are the ones which are going to come and help humanity. But there are some other races, one of which has been coming to this planet since the 60s. This planet is not at the lowest level of soul evolution in terms of life forms. There are others, but we are pretty low on the chain. The planets which are inhabited by the true humans, we struggle to conceive of them because their level of soul integration is around the 90% mark, which is way beyond our comprehension, really. But in practical terms, it means that they are loving human beings. They are in the world from soul. Soul is the major. Soul is as much them as they are soul. Soul is how they engage in the world. We don't engage in the world via soul. We engage in the world through our fears, through our egos. We have very little conception of what it's like to engage in the soul from heart. But they do, and they are. And this applies to over 1,000 of the planets out there. Some of the true human aliens, they've been in this galaxy now for almost since its inception, 55,000 years. The galaxy, contrary to what our so-called science tells us, which is Christian-based, has been around for 66 billion years. So our present galaxy has been here for 66 billion years, and the true humans arrived 55 billion years ago. from another distant galaxy. They had the diasporas, 65 billion years, sorry, 55 billion years is a long time. And some of the true humans, as they spread, they did devolve, they went backwards. So not all the true humans are at the same level. But even the true humans who have devolved are still connected with their souls at a level of around 40%, which is still way beyond the norm for humanity at this moment in time. Because the true human are so connected with their heart, their internal reality is reflected externally. And their level of science is beyond our comprehension. To say that they're 15,000 years more advanced than us is a fairly accurate summation, but we cannot even comprehend what that might mean. If you contemplate the level of scientific revolution in a technological sense within the last 50 years, and you were to multiply that exponentially, 15,000 years, we just cannot conceive it. It's beyond us. It is totally beyond us. Total control of gravity, total control of the means of food production. They do not require nature to produce it. They can create all their needs within vats, which frees them to travel intergalactically, yes, if they chose to. They can, some of these true humans were coming to take us away, take some of you away, in 20 odd years. They've traveled for over 100 years to get here. So their ships are totally independent. They contain their own nature, their own trees, their own fauna, their own other species of life. They are free from the fears of nature, as we are. We're totally at the mercy of nature. We're always six meals away from brutality, as the saying goes. But they're totally free of that. And they're creative beings, and they are everything that we would hope for. Life, family, joy, laughter, creativity, expression. We have a long way to go. But even the lower ones, at 40-odd%, they all have most of that as part of their psyche. This is partly why we need to generate ego-soul integration of at least 45% if we are to meet these true human aliens and go with them. Because otherwise, it would be like putting a Trojan horse of barbarians into their ships. It just cannot be. You cannot mix chalk and cheese. So that is our challenge. And our joy, if you like. Because that is our destiny, to once more be in our hearts and allow the soul to be in charge of the body, of the vehicle.
Do these true humans are they eternal, infinite beings? Do they experience death?
Yeah, they do. They have. There are different types of true humans out there because there's been a lot of diversity because they've lived in different planets in different areas, and we contain 1.5% of their DNA. So their DNA is way more complex than others, but it's still changing, still altering. There's still growth. The present true humans, the average lifespan is around 500 years. There was a previous race of true humans from which they're descended in another galaxy, and their lifespan was much longer. They were, by the time that their time was done, they were ready to die and disappear. They were living up to about 30,000 years. But these true humans, they've got an average lifespan of about 500 years. And I'd like you to take on board that these true humans who have come towards us from, it's about 14,000 light years away. And hold on. It's about 1400 light years away they've come from. And okay, not sure on this one. No. Okay, I initially misunderstood when I was given this information 3 years ago. I was still learning the ropes and I wasn't as good at communicating and double checking. It's taken them about 14. So initially I said about 100, that's not accurate. It's taken them about 14 years to travel from their home, which is about 1400 light years away. So that's a long time to be traveling. And they've come with their families. So they've brought their families with them.
Do they experience time in the same way we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my point is that this is a definition of love. When someone knows that you need them and they go out of their way to such a great extent, you know, because if you think about it, it's not just the journey here, plus the waiting. The whole journey there and back is going to take them 100 years. You know, they've been here now. They've been here for around 14 years already.
When you say here on this planet, or
No, just in this solar system.
right?
No, they're in the solar system. But their technology is so advanced that we don't stand a chance of. They will appear when they're ready.
And is the solar system that we've been told the way it is actually how it is in you know what we've got?
Is our representation of the solar system accurate?
Yeah.
In terms of the planets going around the sun? You mean, is the flat Earth theory correct?
No, not. I'm not so. I don't believe in that. But you know, something I've heard is the fact that this is a simulation, and that what we see is maybe there's another planet out there, and there's a ship that we can't see, and there's other. We're not really seeing what reality really is.
We don't see reality because we're lost in our heads. So what we see is a representation of reality through words in our heads. But once we move into our hearts, we can experience reality as it is without words. And yes, the structure of reality is real. This is the physical is real. It's not. There's no fantasy here. It is as it is. A cheese is a cheese. Yeah, and this whole thing of yes, but there's huge gaps, and there's empty space. This is all very relative. There is empty space for a molecule, but it's not empty space for us. If you wear a cardigan, the cardigan keeps the heat in, but the cardigan is full of holes. But from your perspective, there is no holes. It's been created, but the holes are minuscule in comparison to the shape and size of the cardigan. And it's the same with human beings. Yes, there's space in us, but the space in us is only there for the soul dimension. Yeah. The soul dimension can blend with the physical dimension in the same way that water can fill a jar filled with sand. They can occupy the same space to that extent. But the world as we experience it is real. The planets are real, the orbits are real, everything is real, and they are all round. However, we are limited in our experience of the universe because we have very few means of engaging with the world around us. So our senses are minuscule, and so our perception of it is minuscule. The electric theory is real. The Berkeleyan, whatever you call those, there's a word for them. The Berkeleyan.
Oh, the Bosnian, isn't it? Oh God.
There is electrical connections between every body in the universe, and electricity is the underlying matrix from the atom upwards. The electron and the proton, positive and negative charge. This is the basics of the universe. There is polarity in everything, from above so below, and from below so above. Everything contains the duality. So, beginning with the ineffable of God, the maker of all, God creates the duality of creation. And the duality of creation is the soul dimension and this third dimension that we call the earth and the galaxy and the universe. And that's all there is. There is nothing else. There is the duality at a basic level. You've got soul dimension and physical dimension. And the soul dimension is a replica of God. And the soul dimension, as a replica of God, has created the third dimension. So this third dimension is the playground for soul, for the soul dimension, for the experience of God. It is God via the soul dimension that has created the third dimension, and then it is enmeshed within the third dimension. Everything that we could possibly hope to experience is God. There is nothing else. So all our wars, all our fears, all our conflicts, this is all a misunderstanding. It's an incomprehension of the reality, which is that it's all God. There is no separation. We are separated because we are in our egos. And so within ourselves, we have reflected. So just like there's the duality between the soul dimension and the physical dimension, so there is that same duality within a human being. There is the fragment of soul within us, and then there is the physical ego. So the duality occurs at every level.
So what is God?
God is. God, we cannot, even the soul dimension cannot comprehend what God is. All we can hope for is to understand God via our ability to create as God creates. So the soul dimension see, we say God is love, but God isn't love either. God is the vibration of the creation. Yeah. But we interpret that as love, depending on where we're at. So an ego interprets love in a sexual way. Soul interprets love as communion with everything that is. And soul interprets the God's vibrational energy as creating too. So the soul dimension applies vibration to the physical dimension. It applies will. And you could call that will God, or the love of God. But that vibration has been managed from the smallest possible particle within this third dimension. It has been managed by will, the will of the soul dimension. And the act of will at the soul dimension is a congregation of experience which gradually coalesces, and it flows upwards like hot water flows upwards through the ocean. Heat rises in the ocean. And so that vibration rises through the soul dimension in the same way. And as it rises, it speeds up and it coalesces, and eventually that goes back to God, whatever God is, beyond creation. And you could say that creation is nourishment for God.
Or God wanting to see itself reflected?
God has no wants or needs.
So what's this
we
game about
imagine.
then?
We don't actually know.
Yeah.
So nobody actually knows about God all we know is that we are reflections of God.
Yeah.
And it's not complex, it's not complicated. God creates the soul dimension, which in turn creates this third dimension. And the interplay of opposites between the soul dimension and the physical dimension is experienced through the application of will that goes up to God. Now, so coming back to your initial question in this respect about will, egos do not have will. It is not possible for an ego to have will, because ego is a machine, is a complex machine with three separate brains, and because it has three separate brains, it knows itself. It knows, I am a machine. It can also delude itself that I am more than a machine. But ego knows itself as a machine. And so ego can apply, ego has no will. There's absolutely no will to ego, for the very simple reason that we are programmable machines. We are programmed by our DNA, and we are programmed by our childhood experiences. And you can see this with all animals. If you see a dog that has an experience that scares it when it's young, as it grows up, it won't go there. It will avoid that experience, or it will react angrily to anything that might bring that experience into focus in the future, because its mind remembers. Avoid that. Yeah. So we are programmed by our mind, by our experiences as we grow up, and we're also programmed by belief systems inculcated in us by others. For their own nefarious reasons, some of them through ignorance, but some of them through nefarious reasons. And so what we think of as will is actually programs running within us we don't even know we have. There is a possibility of will within a human being, but this is only via the heart, and this is from the fragment of soul within us. And only when the ego-soul integration has reached a certain level. That's not totally accurate. So I will never have any will on this. I will never have any will. That's me, the ego talking here. I will never have any will. And my level of ego-soul integration is never going to be enough to actually have any will. Is that true? No, that's not quite true. So Eric cannot apply will through me. Eric can apply will through itself. So when my heart is operating, when Eric is in charge, when Eric is in control, when Eric is behind the wheel, Eric cannot apply will. That's not quite true. There's something here, I'm missing something here. Eric, my life has already been preordained for the last 8,500 years. And this applies to all of us, I came into this world at a certain moment in time in this physical universe. This physical universe is interconnected physically. It is a mechanistic universe. This third dimension is totally mechanistic, 100%. And so all actions are preordained by the movement of the universe. However, it is not possible for us, not even for soul, certainly not for soul, 100% not for us, and certainly not for soul. It is not possible for us to have enough information to be able to prejudge where any particular particle is going to be at any particular moment in time in this universe. Every atom has interactions with every atom. Everything interacts and affects each other. But to know where every particle is going to be at any moment in time, and so then be able to say, well, if this one hits this, then that's going to have that effect on this, that, or the other. There isn't a supercomputer that is big enough to be able to take all the possibilities into account. So although the past up till this moment has come to pass and is now fixed, the possibilities from this moment forward have got so many variables that it is impossible to predict at this level. We are able to predict what's going to happen in generalized terms, but at the level of humanity, where our lives are so short and there are so many of us interacting with each other, it is almost impossible to predict exactly. This is why it's taken 8,500 years of our time to arrange events, and even then we are meant to meet certain people in our lives, and many people I know for me, that there have been many people who have held my hand, so to speak. My life has been managed. There've been many other souls who've been there at different times of my life to help me to take the next step. Painful though it was. I've never been alone. Though to my ego, it felt that way. And so there were many variables, but there were others there always through all, through all the very painful moments in my life, of which there were a great many, it was never more than I could bear. There was always someone waiting in the wings to help me along. That's enough about it. So. It's too intense. Anyway, yeah. So, our lives, for those of us who have come here with a purpose, our pain has a purpose. It is to help us to achieve escape orbit velocity from our egos. Because this world is very convoluted and lost, and we cannot see the wood for the trees, and we're born into this world and we're lost. And we know that we're going to be lost. Before we come, we know we're going to be lost. But there's always other souls to help us along. Because only we can do it. Only we can have the experience to free ourselves. Only we can make the connection. But we're not alone. And we are helped. Certainly I have been throughout the whole of my life. And so are you who listen to me. Yeah. All of you who've stayed to hear this far, you've all had help, are having help, and we will have helped. There's no other way.
Very powerful, Sal, very powerful. I'm very moved by that. When you say you've been helped, how do you know? And you said that everyone else is being helped.
Well, I know others have been helped because Charley just told me, but I know that I was helped because I look back over my life and I see all the people who were there for me, who've been there for me at different stages, even in ridiculous ways. I mean, in the most ridiculous ways. There was one time when I was I'd gone to Switzerland, and it was a bad phase in my life. Before going to Switzerland, I'd gone to this shop, Chinese shop, you know better, and they were selling herbs, and my hair was going, and they were sort of advertising, you take this Chinese herb to help your hair grow. Well, I'll try it. And I began to take in these herbs. And so I took them with me, and I'd gone off to this. That plus the fact that I'd been experimenting on myself with acupuncture all over the place. I was lulali. And this was when I was training to be a Taoist trainer. And so I'd gone to Switzerland to go a 1 month workshop to do with tantric yoga, Taoist tantra. And so I was taking these herbs, and I was literally so out of it, you wouldn't believe it. So on my way there, the train system there was unbelievable. You could I had I had to take 4 different trains to get to my destination within Switzerland. And I would literally get off one train and the next train would be waiting for me, and the next one and the next one. And so I'd been given the list of what I had to do. And so I get into this train and I'm so out of it. And yet people, people are telling me, you get off now and don't forget your suitcase. I was literally carried along from train to train to my destination. And that's just a silly little something. But it's like that throughout the whole of my life. Yeah, so I've literally been carried.
I can't say that's the case for me.
No,
No.
maybe not yet, but
Yeah.
one day you'll look back.
Yeah. There's certainly instances where that is, but for me, I feel that it's often, they say that people come into your life as a blessing or a lesson. I think sometimes it's the situations that haven't been particularly the best that actually have brought out something good for me in the end. Is that someone looking out for me then?
Okay. You have had many souls in your life who have been there for you when you needed them. You're not necessarily in touch with that, but you will be. A time will come when you will look back over your life and you will appreciate, actually, there's about 8 specific people in your life who've been there for you. And there's more to come.
Mm.
They've been there at times when you needed some help of some sort or other, but it's not the sort of help that does things for you. You still have to do your own work, but they're there for you to ease your movement through life. I'm doing it for you right now here, I'm the latest one in your sphere.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. No. There are 2 others in your world at the moment who are also there for you.
Mm.
So, there are people for you. Not people, but, souls who are there for you to help you in your journey. And we all have to do our own journey. We cannot do it for other people.
Yeah.
We all have to do our own journey.
So, let's talk about other religions. Do you think any of the religions have got anything right about what God is and this reality?
First of all, nobody knows what God is. Just to be clear on that. All we can do is approximate.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're in ego, we operate from a place of fear, and so we embody our gods. We embody what we don't know about. So, we had whole pantheons of God, did we not? The Romans, the Scandinavians, the Egyptians, everybody had a pantheon. And a lot of these gods were a reflection of our psyche. But those were different sort of gods. There were gods which had come down from the Atlanteans. Those were information which was carried in as gods, information as to how a human being is, as to our psyche. And we devolved, like after the last cataclysm, as we went downwards into the Dark Ages, so our perception of godhood became more and more idiosyncratic, more as reflections of ourselves rather than of what else there might be beyond us. So the Indian religion, for example, they've got a pantheon of gods.
So Hinduism.
The Hinduism. And they are closer to the perspective of the psyche of a human being, the different aspects of a human being. And no one would think of them as real gods. Perhaps some people would, although you see, the problem has always been the same, that those who are the souls which are less experienced are less discerning. There are certain truths as to the nature of reality. And advanced souls, I hate the word advanced in this way because no one on this earth is advanced. We're all very young souls, but some of us are relatively more further up the ladder than the rest. And when we hear truth, we may not have the experience, but we latch onto it. We don't have enough experience yet, but we realize that there's truth here. We don't know the whole truth, but there is something here which is real, yeah? There are concepts to do with creation and reality that we resonate to. The younger souls will not resonate to them. So the younger souls are the ones who get lost in religion for the masses. And so their perception of God is one of a reflection of themselves, whereby, they pay lip service to the fact that God is love, for example, through Jesus. So they appreciate, or they like to believe, that Jesus is love. And some of them will grow through that, in that they will focus on the love of Jesus, and they will open their hearts to Jesus' love and let Jesus' love flow into their hearts, regardless of whether Jesus is real or not as an external being. The fact that they can open their hearts up to the love of Jesus is sufficient for them to raise beyond their ego in consciousness. So the ego-soul integration grows. So I for one, I would not poo-poo them. I would not poo-poo the love of Jesus one little bit. It is the ones who focus on the words, on the litany, and use that by which to judge themselves and others, and who then assume that God judges them, and they're judged by God. And then you have heaven and hell, and suffering, and original sin. None of that is true. This is creation myths by low-level souls who are reflecting their inner lack of experience onto the world. To say that God is love, and nobody knows what God is, but to say that God is love is as close to the truth as we can get from our perspective.
But God is not sat up on a fluffy cloud judging, and you've got to atone if you want to come here, and if you really want to. It's these levels. There is no levels. This is the human.
There is the maker of all, who has created creation. He has put, when I say he, she,
They.
he has put himself into creation, into the soul dimension. He hasn't put himself into the soul dimension like, here's me a being, because the soul dimension has no substance. It has no solidity, although it does occupy space. It is an infinite space. And it is an infinite space of vibration. It's an infinite space of vibration. But it's not vibration within a physical form like we have in this third dimension. It's, like Charley says that our souls, like Eric, all the soul fragments that exist on this earth within life, they're part of the ninth dimension, and Charley himself is part of a 12th dimension, and planetary body souls are part of the 17th dimensions, and there are higher ones than that, but I haven't bothered going any higher, there's no point. But although we've got 9th dimensions and 12th dimensions and 17th dimensions, all we're talking about is vibration within water just hitting up, going upwards within this space of the soul dimension. There is no separation. You cannot say, this is Charley, this is Eric. It's all in there. It's all one. And this is, if God is anything, God is one. God is everything. And soul is one. And humanity is one. So everything is a reflection of a higher level, but the truth remains constant. Everything is one.
What's spirit then?
Are we actually getting questions?
No, that's me waiting, you looking at me and I'm going, there's still no questions.
We may not get any, but you're doing really well.
No.
What is spirit?
Is that just a religious man-made construct?
Well, spirit is a concept to describe, so you've got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, the Spirit. So it's a description. And in the way that it is described, it is not accurate. And we also confuse the word spirit because we talk about ghosts and we call them spirits. So the word becomes very confusing.
What about essence?
I'm not sure what the context of essence means. The essence is the indefinable essence of anything. You could say that soul is an essence.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's the essence of, you could actually say that soul is the essence of the maker of all.
But in terms of spirit, like the human spirit or the spirit of nature, is that like this?
It's a descriptive
field
term
of intelligence.
Okay, there is a sort of collective intelligence, if you like. Okay, there's a collective intelligence to do with the soul dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So the ninth dimension, you could define as a collective intelligence, but it is still soul. It's still soul dimension, and it's still part of soul, and soul is still one. So all life shares within itself. So we all interact with each other. All life interacts with each other, from the lowest to the highest. It's a good question.
So is that just all these different labels? So we've got the Akashic record, we've got the morphogenetic field, and others would call that nature's intelligence system. Is that what you're talking about? And where is still spirit?
All right. Well, so no confusion there, right? So spirit does not exist. Okay, there's no such thing as spirit as we colloquially call it. Like people say, the spirit of the age, for example.
Yeah.
You know, that's not an entity. It's a concept. Yeah. So the spirit of the age, that's just a concept. You could actually call it a feeling. You could call it a feeling. Is the feeling that unites us. There is also subunity. So, for example, all the crystals share an affinity with each other, and there is, you could call it an intelligence that affects all of them. There is a unity there's a unity. So humanity is a unity. Yeah, humanity is a unity. In fact, humanity, cats and dogs are part of humanity. So we are, we're not separate. So cats and dogs are part of humanity. That's an interesting one. So, for example, lions are not. But the rest of so like all herbivores, for example, they do not have an affinity with themselves. But there's an affinity within the subdivisions of the herbivore. So elephants will have an affinity with all elephants, just to put into perspective.
Do they have a telepathy?
They have an emotional intelligence. They can convey emotion to others. And it's not purely phenomenon.
Pheromone. Yeah.
Pheromone. There is connection. So yes, elephants can connect with other elephants across thousands of miles, but it's not telepathy in a sort of verbal way.
Mm-hmm.
It is a feeling communication. And humans have that as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're still recording, yeah. Just checking that we're still recording.
Yeah, okay. Thatcher's gone.
Actually, that's a point. I should have disconnected it in every other way. So, in terms of spirit, so there are connections, but spirit as spirit, no. But different, what do you call them, races, or what would you call it, species, different species connect, but also there is connection at different levels of integration, like the rocks have also got a collective intelligence. But there are different levels of connectivity because the soul level is much more basic. So there are levels.
And so, what is consciousness?
Okay, there's no such thing as consciousness per se, the way that people think of it. The ego has no consciousness. The ego has self-awareness when all three brains are integrated. But the majority of people only have two brains operating.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't even know they're here. Most people go through life, they don't even know they've gone through life. It's like life has passed them by because they have not been in life. They have not been in their bodies, they have not been in their emotions, they have not been in their minds, they have not been in their creativity, in their imagination. Everything is second-hand. And so, you know, there are times when I've driven in the past, sunny day, very hot, and 10 minutes have gone by. Where was I? My body was driving the car, but where was I? I wasn't there for those 10 minutes. And yes, I was, but I wasn't. Well, that's how it is for most people, most of the time. Fractured is our minds, our egos are so fractured that one side doesn't know what the other side's doing. And so our experience of life is in dribs and drabs. And so a lifetime goes very quickly. Whereas someone who is in their three brains, lifetime takes a long time because there's a lot we are in life, we're experiencing life. And so although it's still the same amount of time, it is experienced as though it's much, much longer. Sorry, what was the question?
It was about consciousness. So
Yes,
consciousness exists in the brains?
So there is no such thing as consciousness in that true sense. However, when all three brains are operating and when ego surrenders to the heart and the heart begins to be in charge, experience itself, then as we connect with feeling in the world, then the world becomes very, very rich. Because we now have another dimension by which to experience the world. And in the process, we are conscious because we know we're here. You know, I know I'm here. Right now, my ego is here, my brains are functioning, my heart is present, and I'm in the room, I'm totally here. And so this moment lasts a long time because I'm here. But what do we do when we're here? The last thing we want to do is be here. We want to sort of distract ourselves with something or other so we're not here. So consciousness is a function of the three brains being integrated, first of all. And then of our hearts, of our feelings being engaged and allowing our soul fragment to be in charge rather than our ego. Our ego is still here, but now our ego is a servant. Not quite subservient, but a servant to soul. And to the extent that we do that, we are conscious. I prefer the word ego-soul integration because that is truly what defines. Consciousness, I've used it in the past, it was a stepping stone in my development, but really it's about the ego-soul integration. The greater we can integrate our ego with our soul or our soul with our ego, the higher we climb, the more present, the more real we are, the more human we are.
The more we can command the universe and affect this reality.
All right, okay. Right. So, soul has the power to create. And it creates from the ground up. But now, everything around us has already been created. The physical matter has already been created. So now we're simply talking about how the matter interacts with each other. And even that, like a clock, has predefined routes of interaction. So now we are here and we are reflections of soul. So we have the power to create. Of course we do. But we do not have the power to create matter, to command matter in that way, simply because we visualize it. However, because we are one consciousness, if you like, one intelligence, we communicate incessantly with other human beings. And whenever I am in the midst of my emotional experience or with my feelings or from my imagination and my creation, if I bring all that together, I am very powerful. But I am only powerful insofar as I can affect other human beings. And by the same token, other human beings can affect me. Most people are not like that. Most people have not opened up to their creativity, to their imagination. And so when they have wants, because they are lost in their egos, they have wants and needs. And they may have a fleeting, I would like a car, or I would look this or the other. Often what happens is that force, if emotion is added to that, I want that. If you really have that emotion, then you can't bring it towards yourself. But you bring it towards yourself via other people. And so the more powerful your emotion, the more powerful your image of what you're after, the more you will so-called manifest it, but only because you're getting other people on your behalf to bring it towards you. That is the extent of our creation. But most people are not very creative in that way because they're not connecting, or they're very conflicted. Their ego is so fractured that one part of them wants the car, but the other part wants a motorbike, or the other part thinks, I am totally unworthy, I'm such a shit, I'm this, that, the other, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve what. So there is sabotage going on. So the reason why most people are not aware that they are creating things all the time in collusion with others is because they're fractured and they're conflicted within themselves, and or they're very disassociated from their imagination or from their ability to generate strong emotions. However, once we do that, then what we can create is pretty amazing. Having said that, because the majority of people on this earth are fractured and their emotions are being manipulated by others, even though their capacity for emotion is weak, collectively they are managing to affect our perception of reality to everybody, to the whole group. So our experience of what's going on this earth right now is precisely a reflection, not just of how we are in ourselves, but how we are collectively generating this reality. Which perhaps brings me to close to the end of how we should finish here, which is that this is partly why people like Joshua and I are here, which is that we are desperately in need of people who can connect with their hearts, who can allow their feelings to come to the fore, so that we can generate a vision of reality which is so much more powerful. It doesn't take anywhere near as many people to generate this reality. And we will do this. And we are at the starting line. But we need this collective of people who are ready, who are said, yes, the world as it is, this is not what we want. This is not what I signed up for. We need to change it. You know, right now, I said I wouldn't go into politics, and I don't want to go into politics, but right now we are at the brink. There are two separate factions, two separate factions, sorry, my Spanish, who are at loggerheads with each other. And the potential repercussions of these interactions are not worth thinking about. And we're definitely heading in this direction at this moment in time. And this is a wake-up call. The time is now. The time is now to truly begin to work on ourselves. Don't try to change other people. Work on ourselves. Begin to work on our emotions and work on our hearts. And it is only by the opening of our hearts, recognizing that we are soul experiencing life and that we're all in the same boat. The more we do this, the more we connect with our love for ourselves in our hearts, and the more we can start to love others as a result. But, you know, we've got to start with ourselves. The more we start to do these things, the more we are going to generate a tsunami, not of emotion, but of feeling that will alter our perception of reality, our collective perception of reality. We will do this, we can do this, and we will do this. But the time is now, the time has come. There's just so many of you out there now who are just beginning to realize there is more going on here than meets the eye. So,
does that include, you know, that shift in consciousness or more soul integration? Does that include a healing for the earth, which is a being with soul as well?
okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to blow people's bubble. The earth does not need healing. We are a blot on the landscape of the earth. We're such a minuscule part of the earth. You know, like we're talking 79% water, 29% land, out of which we occupy a small space. We are nothing. We think we're something. We're not. We're nothing. The earth has been here before, and it will be here again. There is a cataclysm coming. The earth is going to be destroyed from our perspective on the surface. There's going to be a lot of movement about, a lot of distortion, a lot of breakage, a lot of something or other. A lot of carbon is going to get deposited again for the future. There's a lot of stuff going to happen. We are nothing. And the earth does not need us at all. We need the earth doesn't need us. Yeah, the earth, you know, human population has gone up and down like a yo-yo for millions of years. The earth does not need us, and we do not have the power to alter the earth. There's quite a few people out there who are doing all this, you know, we'll go to the ley lines and we'll do this, we'll do the other. Sheer fantasy. Sheer fantasy. We are nothing. get over it. We're egos, we're meaningless, we're nothing. But there is something great within us. So, sorry, I think I got so into that. What was the initial question?
Well, you answered it. It's. I think it's because so many people are in an inertia and a worry about the damage being done to the planet, and this being a living thing. But essentially, the planet's just going to take care of itself as it's done before, and this is a cycle.
Yeah, the planet does not need us. It never has. The planet enjoys us. Okay, so the planet I call what do I call the planet? It's Francis, I think I call the planet. It's been a while since I've called him by any name. So the planet, it exists. It's got a soul that permeates it, that experiences through it. And we as human beings, we're a very, very small part of the planet. You think of nature, think of all diversity of animals, fish, birds, mammals, whatever. There's such a sheer number that permeates the earth. We are such a small, we've managed to kill most of them, right? If anything, we're the pariahs of the earth, but the planet doesn't need us. That's not to say that we shouldn't be here. The planet enjoys us. The planet enjoys us. But its time frame is so far away. We're a second, a bit longer than that. A minute. We're a minute of its timeline. In terms of its life experience, we ourselves, we're just a minute. And there's a lot of love from the planet to us. Funnily enough, the love is so different from the planet than from Charley. But I've often basked in the love of the planet, of Francis. It's such a sort of strange purity to it. But it has no other interest in us. It just is. And so everything that's going on at the moment in terms of, there's so many shenanigans going on about saving the planet for this reason, that or the other. Misguided at best. Nefarious at worst. We don't need to be concerned by that. Bottom line, if anyone tells you anything that is going to generate fear with you, it's some sort of manipulation. True human beings do not generate fear with other human beings. Yeah, it's a manipulation. Anyway,
That's a lot.
it seems like we've gone for a long time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say just to finish it?
I can't think of anything.
No. Well, listen, if you stayed with us till now, thank you very much for listening. And give us a like, subscribe, come and say hello. We've got a channel, we've got a Telegram channel. But stay tuned, we'll be back. All the best for now. Bye-bye.